Afternoon, welcome to Colney. Paddy, Davitt alongside me, David Freezer. We've just heard from interim head coach Alan Irvine and midfielder Alex Tettey, who is going to hopefully win his 150th appearance for Norwich tomorrow. Always a likeable character, isn't he, Pad? He seemed very proud of that achievement. That it seems to be, well, presumably he will win that 150th game tomorrow.
Yeah, I think it's safe to assume he probably will. I don't think Alan Irvine will make too many changes. He says there's no fresh injuries, so guys who went and won a game 7-1, it would be a little bit harsh, particularly as we've just heard from him literally in the last few moments, and drawing a lot of parallels between the kind of threats, or not, as the case turned out, Reading will offer and Huddersfield. So, you know, it's a similar sort of test. Don't think we're going to change too many things around, and as a result, yeah, it's a nice milestone for Alex, and I don't think he was aware of it. Clearly the media team have probably flagged it up to him, and yeah, it's a nice sort of, on a personal level, shows the commitment he's had to the club. But I thought the interesting line from him was that he doesn't know if he will be here next summer, and what he means by that is clearly there is one more year left on his current deal, but as we've had it confirmed in the last couple of hours now, things are changing here off the pitch at the moment, but clearly the focus will switch to the playing side, and you know, lads like Alex, they might not be in the plans for the new head coach, so it's an uncertain time for him.
It was the way he delivered the line, wasn't it? That he said, I did write it down here somewhere, you know, if I'm here next summer and next season, then we'll go again and we'll try and get to the Premier League. I mean, I was a bit surprised by that. I wouldn't be expecting Alex to leave this summer. I maybe wouldn't expect him to play quite such a key starting role next year. He'll be 32, I think, next season. So would you be keeping him?
I don't know. The honest answer is, you know, Huddersfield last summer, I think there was 15 players turned over in and out the door. You know, we know there's, I'm not counting off the top of my head, but there's probably 4 or 5 lads here who are going to be out of contract, but that still leaves quite a significant turnover potentially, because they need to bring in fresh blood. You know, as you would say, he probably isn't the Alex Tettey he has been. You know, he's a very demanding role he plays there in screening in front of the back four, very physical. A lot of athleticism is what his game's founded on. I don't think most Norwich fans who've watched most of the games would say this season has been his best. It might be a time for a new direction. You know, Louis Thompson, we hope, comes back, serious Achilles injury, but you know, he's a far younger model in that type of role. But really, at this moment in time, what Alex is saying, I think, stands for us all. You just don't know with any of these guys, really, even the ones who, like him, still have the actual security of the 12 months still on the contract. It's really now, and Alan Irvine said it best last weekend, these lads are on trial, and decisions will be made not solely on what happens between now and the end of the season, because Stuart Webber sat in this very seat, I think, this time last week and said he knows the Norwich players inside out, because that would not have been his job if he didn't know what he was inheriting, because that's what he was doing at Huddersfield. You know, what they were trying to build there in terms of squad, and what other rivals were doing as well. So,
but could be pertinent there would be the style as well, wouldn't it? Stuart Webber's already said about that he wants to put a very specific style. So if Alex doesn't fit that style, if he can't use the ball well enough, then I guess that may have an effect.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the Huddersfield central midfield, and they had lads like Moya, didn't they? Who's a very good ball player. You wouldn't put Alex Tettey in that category, but me personally, I would keep him. Yeah, because I think you know, he's a guy who clearly enjoys this part of the world. I think he probably has got an affinity, given that length of service, to Norwich, and I think you're going to need 1 or 2 of those around just for a little bit of continuity. He
said if it goes up to 6 years, that'll be his longest spell with one club. That'll be longer than he was with Rosenborg, and spoke well about Norfolk. Said he's enjoyed his time here. Team news wise, Graham Dorrans, Alan Irvine said that he is still struggling with his foot injury. Trained this week but won't be fit for the game. And Matt Jarvis has had a setback. I spoke to him at an Easter event on Tuesday. Where are we now? It's Thursday. Yeah, Tuesday. I went and saw him, Mitchell Dykes, briefly at the club shop in the Castle Mall, and he'd said then that he was getting there after recently playing his first 90 minutes for the under-23s, but Alan was very clearly talking about the fact that he needs to work hard this summer to be ready for the start of pre-season next year. So that's a bit of a blow, but I mean, Matt, I guess it's a similar situation to much of what you just said on Alex Tettey. If Stuart Webber doesn't see him as being part of it, then regardless of whether he's fit or not, his future may not be here. But he's still got 2 years left on his contract, doesn't he?
Yeah, and the reality is that might well be the conclusion Stuart Webber has arrived at, or will arrive at, with Matt Jarvis. But as you rightly said there's a contractual issue. It's not simply a case, and Norwich have found that to their cost in recent windows, that guy's face doesn't fit, we'll move him on. you can't move these guys on if they're under contract and there's no other clubs willing to perhaps put a financial package their way that they can sort of command here at Norwich. So the reality is, I'm not sure Matt Jarvis would be a leading part of maybe Adam looking to move forward, just because he hasn't played, has he? So, and again, if you draw a parallel with Huddersfield, wide areas, they're not the sort of Matt Jarvis type players for me. It's more your Jacob Murphys, I would suggest. So I think it wouldn't surprise me if all parties could agree that he would move on, and that would be a shame for the lad, because he's never really had a chance to show what he could do. Sadly for him, injury hit career at Norwich. I mean, so I just sense that there will be a lot of turnover this summer, and as I say, lads like that, I'm not sure they would have a leading role moving forward.
And that turnover started before the presser today, shortly before we all came down here at Colney, confirmed by the club, as was reported yesterday by us and the other local media, that Technical Director Ricky Martin, Head of Player Recruitment Tony Spearing, and Head of Scouting Lee Darnborough are all gone. They've left with immediate effect. That's all been confirmed today, and Alan spoke quite well on that, didn't he? He said some interesting stuff about Ricky Martin.
Yeah, he'd spoken to him last night, and just wished him the best. He also sort of slightly disclosed that it was down to Ricky potential. There was a part of his arriving at the club which was down to Ricky, which I wasn't aware of before. So, yeah, a guy who's been here the length of time Ricky had been in a number of roles behind the scenes. That is going to be, quite a surprise. But it certainly, for me, leaves nobody in any doubt that this is a new era, and Stuart Webber's already decided. To be fair, he's only really backed up what he said to us last week, that 3 or 4 windows recruitment-wise haven't been good enough, so it's understandable then that the guys who are probably still here in senior positions involved in recruitment and not going to be part of it moving forward. And I think it's quite a bold, decisive early move, and it really shows you what Stuart Webber's going to be all about. There's certainly no sentiment in that decision.
No, and fans seem to be quite pleased that he's moving quickly as well. I mean, I'm not sure that there will be a huge understanding of what those 3 actually did behind the scenes at the club, but just good to see him getting down to business quickly, I suppose. Just finally then, for looking at Fulham tomorrow, Alan said, as he did it before the Reading game last week, that their style, although it's very attractive, does tee up some weaknesses that he feels they can get at. Do you get the sense that maybe they feel that they could have another success tomorrow? Yeah,
I mean, why wouldn't they? I mean, irrespective of what they haven't done away from home at Carrow Road, they have been very good, very consistent, very on the front foot, putting teams away with consummate ease a lot of the time. But I wouldn't draw any parallels between Reading and Fulham in terms of the same sort of outcome. I think these look at a far more cohesive, a far more streetwise team. Reading had 1 or 2 young lads who it looked to be as if they were out their depth when Norwich started so powerfully.
Reece Oxford.
Yeah, he was the one I was thinking of. Yeah, Fulham, as we saw at Craven Cottage, they're a seriously good team at this level. I like Djukanovic, I like the job he did at Watford. So yeah, I think if Norwich are going to maintain this Carrow Road winning run, they're going to have to earn it the hard way, I think.
Yeah. Just one final thing that I just remembered. Alan Irvine did say that him and Stuart Webber would sit down and have a chat about the players at some point before the end of the season, so that he could sort of share his knowledge on all the players, didn't he? So I guess that's a slightly interesting insight into whether Alan can then play a role with the club going forward, whether him and Stuart can sort of develop a working relationship to the point where he thinks that keeping Alan's going to be worthwhile, because his future is still not certain at the moment, is it?
No, that is an interesting one. Yeah, because I'm pretty sure Stuart Webber would come in and clearly, he's made the decisions on the recruitment personnel, but ultimately the test of his early reign will be who he gets in as his head coach. Now, when that guy is in place towards the very start of the summer, end of this season, they clearly would have maybe their own ideas in terms of the coaching team they want to put around them. But we've heard a lot, and we're seeing evidence of it now, that this is a new approach, this is a new way of doing it, more longer term sustainable planning, rather than a new manager comes in, he brings his backroom team in, the old backroom team move on, and it's like a changing the guard constantly. If they're trying to put a little bit of continuity in, Alan Irvine might fit into that category. He's certainly a very good coach. You speak to these players and they do respect what he can put on a Monday to Friday, and he's got a wealth of experience in the game. He's also got the development background from his work at Everton. There's a lot of boxes being ticked there, so yeah, that'll be an interesting one. But I suppose if the players are on trial, then that probably applies to Alan Irvine. So, but I don't think it'd be the worst decision in the short term to medium term to keep Alan in and around it. But as I say, I think a lot of that would hinge on who comes in as the head coach and what ideas they have.
Yeah, I think I'd go along with that. He's top bloke as well, isn't he? Nice to deal with. Alex Tettey, if he does get that 150th tomorrow, I did put it to him that it would have come a bit earlier if he hadn't been suspended so often. Worked out before he came down here at 49 yellow cards in the 149 so far. So maybe get a yellow just to even those things out tomorrow. Right, thanks, Pad. We'll head back to the office now. Get everything sorted for tomorrow's papers. Already plenty to get your teeth into, including a bit about Alex Tettey's time with the Canaries so far. Michael will be back with us tomorrow. Me, Michael and Pad, all at Carrow Road tomorrow to bring you full coverage. So we'll catch up with you here on Facebook at some point tomorrow. Cheers.